When reality slips away, is there meaning in the word truth? And is there a point to telling stories about it? Project 6, the second story on the second Big Finish Prisoner box set, is allegedly adapted from the TV series episode A, B, and C. But apart from the whiff of a general thematic similarity and a name check for the letters A, B, and C, you'd be hard-pressed to spontaneously realize one story was supposed to be a take on the other. In the original, the helpless number 6 was induced via chemical and technical means into living out 3 scenarios, run sequentially, designed to reveal the identity of a suspected secret co-conspirator. Number 6's triumph over the machinations of number 2 make for some of the most triumphant moments in the whole of the series. In Project 6, number 6 is run, as best as I can tell, through 3, or more, induced scenarios, each embedded in the last, each drifting him further and further from reality, while he thinks he is escaping towards reality. By the end of it, it's unclear if any of it happened. In fact, I listened to the adventure twice before I could decide if it was more than just gibberish recorded to fill time. I've only just decided it's slightly less on the side of gibberish than not. And that brings me to my biggest complaint about this story. What is the point? Perhaps my sensibilities run more towards being grounded in something that's supposed to be real. Dream sequences can occasionally provide important insight into a character, and in the case of some episodes of Gilligan's Island, can be quite amusing. But when there's little else, I find that unsatisfying. Now, before you tell me, that's the point of this story. I get that. We're supposed to be getting an inkling of the feelings and disorientation that number 6 is experiencing. It raises fascinating issues about the nature of truth and reality, but I don't feel it raises them in an entertaining fashion. Number 6 is being tortured. And if I, as the audience, am being subjected to the same thing, then I am being tortured. Personally, I try to avoid torture. We now have had, at minimum, 4 stories in this series that demonstrate that number 6 simply cannot trust the reality of anything he sees, hears, or feels. When they finally get to the end of the series, the audience's faith in the stories will be such that, no matter what the ending turns out to be, there's simply no point in believing it's anything but another fake. Nick Briggs is digging this well really deep, with a risk of no one getting out of it. There are a couple of other points I'd like to note. The first is that number 2 is played by Lucy Briggs-Owen, carrying on from playing Mrs. Butterworth from the previous story, I Met a Man Today. Keeping with the Salesman mythos, it's clear at the end of I Met a Man Today that something sinister happened to Mrs. Butterworth, transforming her into the number 2 in this story. As such, she plays her character as 2 different people, with reasonable success. What's that all about? We never find out. On the other hand, I think Nick Briggs won't be able to resist tying it all up, perhaps a bit smugly, with a neat bow at the end. So, perhaps we will. The second point is that this story ends abruptly, without a conclusion. While the last story also ended without a conclusion, it at least ended at a place that seemed a logical jumping-off point. This story ends with a scene stolen right from another episode of the Prisoner TV series. Was that the culmination of this number 2's plot? I sure as hell don't know. And I wonder if anyone does.